Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 22 of the Tait Talks podcast. Today I've got a very interesting guest who is anonymous. He is going to go by the name Gaz today. He is a recovered alcoholic, and we're going to be talking about AA and everything associated with that and his trials and everything to get to where he is today. Gaz, welcome to the show.
Tait, thank you so much. Great to be here.
You've already been here for 2 hours
it's great.
as we've been talking absolute shit.
We'll just continue on.
Yeah, now we're just recording it. We'll get straight into it. Gaz, tell me about the addiction that you've had.
Yeah, thanks. Where do I start? A lot of people can want to know, it's like, oh, what was the trauma or the pain or what was it from the past that caused your alcoholism? And that's a certain picture that I see in Alcoholics Anonymous it's not an uncommon scenario. It's like the liked environment that you're in, you'll replicate that as an adult. But I don't always see that. Anyone who knows my family, anyone who knows my mother or my father, absolutely loving people. I didn't grow up in an alcoholic home, even though there is alcoholism and drug addiction in my family, is I just feel like I was geared towards it from the beginning. Like I was set up, whether you want to talk about genes or not, it's just like I feel like I was going to head towards this when it was going to happen, not if.
Yeah,
like my mother said to me, she was concerned about coming from Melbourne, moving down the coast, and you got into a drinking culture so young because living on the surf coast and all that stuff. Yeah. It's a pretty big party culture.
Yep.
But I said, Mum, if we grew up on Mars and there was no alcohol, eventually I would have sniffed some moon dust and it would have given me a buzz, and then I would have continued on with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the journey for me was there's kind of two sides, and I guess we'll see where we go when we get into it. From the first time that I had alcohol, is that just the effect that it produced in me. I was in love and obsessed with the effect that alcohol produced in me, and I thought that was the same for everyone.
Yeah.
I didn't even. It took me a while, even as a teenager, to realize not everyone gets drunk when they drink. I didn't think that was a thing. I thought everyone. It's like everyone loves to drink. I couldn't compute why you wouldn't like to get loose. It didn't make sense in my mind. And it wasn't until years later and then coming into AA that I found out is not everybody has the same experience that I did when drinking.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't, for me, it wasn't a little buzz.
Yeah.
It was a euphoric high.
Oh,
it's what you hear in AA sometimes people say, it's like the golden elixir to life.
Yeah.
I never felt like it's like I've always been an extrovert.
Yeah.
So it's like, even though I think even extroverts can go through issues of social stuff, and it's like we might not present like the person who really looks like they struggle in social situations, but still wanting to be a part of supernatural. It's like it's not that I didn't go through that, but it wasn't like I was how am I trying to word it? So like some people say it's like alcohol changed their world dramatically from that, like having the pains of being an introvert, and they started drinking and it solved that issue. But for me, it's like I feel like it extended it even more.
Yeah.
It was just like that buzz and the effect that it produced I was hooked on that right from the get-go.
Yeah.
And it started when it was the very next day actually after I blacked out the first time I drank. And that was a very common thing in my drinking. But you don't even, like, I know people who never blacked out. You can still be an alcoholic, and we'll tease this out a lot more. It's like, what's an alcoholic? What's not an alcoholic? What's a heavy drinker? What's a hard drinker? All that stuff. But I know the very next day is after we'll sore and sorry after the hangover, and we'll walk into the train station. I was thinking, when is the next time I'm going to do that?
Oh, okay.
And then even though I was able to participate in life, I was still able to finish school. In the early days, I was able to have girlfriends, even though I was a terrible boyfriend, very selfish and inconsiderate and just caused a lot of harms. I was still able to participate in most of life's stuff. It wasn't like alcohol was the predominant thought, even though I thought about it a lot. But as it continued to progress, I started to be, it's like all the good life stuff, I started to separate, or it started to get removed, and drinking alcohol and then substance was a part of my story too, became more and more important, and I thought about it more, I engaged in the actions of it more, I was drinking more, taking more drugs, and when I wasn't in my sober state, is thinking about the next time that I'm going to drink or get on. that increased over the years more and more and more and more.
Yeah. So when you, I suppose, went from that point of just drinking, quotation mark, kind of normally, just finding alcohol and stuff in your life, when was the point where it was kind of like, I'm drinking a lot? Like, when was it, is this 18 when you started drinking, or before 18?
15. So for me, is like, I see, this is the funny nature of alcoholism is the way in which it manifests at the start can be quite different. Like I know dudes in AA that didn't start drinking till they're 60, bone dry, 60. At 65, they're in AA, they're drinking 2 bottles of vodka a day. Jeez. But you don't even have to drink spirits to be an alcoholic. We'll flesh this out. We've got quite a lot of time. But for me, is when I started, there's in AA, we talk about 2 really strongly identifying factors of being an alcoholic, the way that AA sees alcoholism: mental component and a physical component. The physical component, we say, is it's like we call it an allergy, which is old term for just an abnormal reaction. Okay. So most people, when they drink alcohol, they can drink some. They're usually in control of how much they have. People get drunk every now and again, but most of the time they're in control of how much alcohol they can drink. Yep. Whereas for myself is if I drank 100 times, 90 times I could not tell you how much I was going to drink, or in control. Was I going to drink for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days? Was I going to drink all night? Yeah. I didn't know how it was going to manifest. And we call that the phenomenon of craving. The reason why we call phenomena, science doesn't really know why it happens for alcoholics. And it's just, once I start to drink, I can't control the amount I take. Yeah. And so that's the physical side, the way that this is just a very simple explanation of it. Yep. And so we say in AA, cool, if your only problem is every time you drink you get out of sorts, don't drink. Okay. Cool. But then the more serious side of alcoholism kicks in, which is we call the mental obsession or the chronic alcoholic mind, is in the sober state. So you might have sworn off drinking. I can't drink. I've just wrecked my life. My girlfriend's gone. I've lost my job. Or my internal condition is I'm so over the person that I've become. Because there's a whole nother story in the background that people don't see, is the decline of morals and behaviours due to the unmanageability of the alcoholic. Or in my experience, my unmanageability, there's a lot more of the picture of alcoholism that has to do with not just drinking, but it's the life that you're living. And the mental obsession side is being in a sober state, swearing off, I don't want to drink. Yeah, it's like I'll pass a lie detector test. Yeah. I'm absolutely done with drinking, yet my mind will convince me to go back to drinking, and I cannot differentiate the true from the false. Yeah. Like it is, that's why we call it an obsession, one thought exclusive of all others, is my mind just says we need to have a drink, we need to have a drink, we need to have a drink. And I do not have the power to fight that off. Yeah. I don't have a defense against that. Is no matter how bad my life had gotten, just escaping from going to jail, my family giving me the heartfelt side of you're ripping the family apart. My father stopped talking to me. My sister wrote me off as a human. Knowing all of this, all the evidence is on the table. I can see it clearly. I'm looking at you going, I know I shouldn't drink, but you still will. But my mind will convince me to go back to a drink, and I can't say no. Yeah. And this is the very hard thing for other people to see. It's like, well, simply don't drink if you can see that it's wrecking your life. Yeah. But this isn't a problem with it's like on my own willpower, me trying to overcome this problem by myself, I wasn't able to stop drinking. Yep. And so it's for me, is like those things. I identify with them very early. Not a lot of, some people don't, which is fine when they come to AA. But for myself is the first time I drank, I blacked out. I had plenty of blackouts in between. I blacked out on my last bust that I had when I was in AA. And the mental obsession is, as the years went on, I thought more and more about the effect that I wanted alcohol. Like I just wanted that effect of alcohol and drinking, and when am I going to next have that drink? That increased over time as the years went on. So for me, it ramped up very quickly. I was having thoughts in high school about people sort of drinking the same as me, because I wasn't like plenty of dudes can put away a lot of alcohol. Yeah. And so, but I'm like, surely people aren't thinking about it the way I was. Like I was already having thoughts like that when I was 17 going, I'm thinking about alcohol a lot. I mean, but have I still got other endeavors? Am I still, it's like, was I able to have friends and go on holidays and finish school and then get a job and be involved in family activities? I could still do the majority of life. Yeah. But it's like my world got smaller and smaller, and like the amount that I drank was increasing as well, but also my thinking around it increased. And another side of the alcoholism that a lot of people might not see, they can see it in a joking manner when you're young, but the decline of your moral behavior when you're drinking or not, and the harms that you cause to loved ones, it's like people who have gone through addiction understand is that what they call it a family disease is how much harm we put through the family. So Gareth's just been a drunken dickhead at the Torquay pub and he's gotten naked, but they don't know that my mother was concerned for 4 years that she thought I was going to die. So like how much strain can you put on a mother's heart? What's more serious than a mother thinking that their child's going to die? No one saw that.
Yeah.
Even close friends, no one really knew what the family goes through.
Yeah.
And it's not just a disease that I see to do with just drinking. It's like there's an unmanageability of life, and sort of the behavior and actions that I take is the darkness, so to speak, is in all aspects of my life, is like my selfishness and inconsideration and the harm that I'm causing is that got worse and worse over time as well.
Yeah. And it sounds like you're just kind of oblivious to it, like when it's happening, I guess.
It's criminal. It's quite criminal the way that I see that you can have moments of clarity of seeing it, and then once I put the bottle back in, you could not. It's like literally I can just, like I've had moments when I was with, I got family members to come to court and lie for me.
Yeah.
And that's a hideous thing that I got to do. Somebody who's an honest, law-abiding citizen to lie for me in court, and I didn't go to jail, and then. Is leading up to that point, it was so clear that I needed to move away from drugs and alcohol. Very clear. Like in my mind, I'm sitting here going, it is clear as day. And then what regularly happened was very little consequence in my life, or what I thought was consequence. Because if I didn't go to jail and my family didn't know what I was doing, I'm off scot-free.
Yeah.
That I just wanted to drink the way I wanted to drink with no consequences in the lives of others. But I couldn't drink the way I was drinking without having consequences. I was always going to cause harm in the lives of others. And as soon as it's like, I got off on a light sentence, whilst that family member's sitting next to me in the car, I'm sending text messages to people saying, I'm good to get on tonight. And this is like months leading up to that. I need to stop. I know I should stop. And then it's like, how did the mental obsession kick in? How did my alcoholic mind kick in?
Yeah.
Oh, you're not going to jail. It's a slap on the wrist. It's not even that bad. Pay a couple of grand for the fines. We're good to drink again. That's what the head says. We're good to drink again.
Was there... So... I don't know, it's probably a bit of a hard one, but for some reason my brain, when people give me a dollar figure to certain things, that's when I go like, oh, that must have been bad. Do you have a peak addiction or anything? It's very strange. But I think it puts it into perspective. Or can you work out how much you were drinking at all, or spending, or even, I suppose you said drugs were associated with it later. Was that, or was it just a I was drinking and then drugs were involved type thing?
Yeah, so pretty much they were both around. As soon as it first got introduced, like, say maybe I drank for a year before I took drugs for the first time. Maybe smoking weed was for the first time, and then the progression of everything bar pretty much heroin or anything that came across my path I would try.
Yeah.
Is so as it's like it was just the full percentage of my, like, still being able to live. So I'd like put petrol in the car and all that sort of stuff. But it's I would do anything that I had to do in order to drink and take drugs. Like whether it was still earning really good money, blow all of that, borrow money off people, which I tried to avoid, but I would get a loan. I'd redraw on a loan. I'd get a credit card. Like I'd be out on nights where, if you've ever had a credit card, if you take cash out on a credit card, it instantly adds 30%. Well, that's what my credit card was. So when I took out that $500, that cost me $650.
Yeah.
So I could continue on. And that was sort of the nature of what I was saying before about that physical allergy, or the physical side is once I start, I can't stop.
Yeah.
Most times is just burn it to zero, whether it's like the body shuts down, whether there's no more money, there's no more resources, the party's stopped, and there's no other option for me to continue on.
Yeah.
So it's just like whatever money was coming in, that would be blown. And like I've gone back and looked at that as like, as a single dude earning six figures, and you come and then a year later you look at that and you go, it's not even the fact that I don't have a single dollar in savings, is I'm in debt.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm a single dude.
Yeah.
What's my overheads?
Yeah.
Bit of rent and a phone bill.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I got rent, bills, and then like it's like not much.
Yeah.
So it's like
So you just you could
all of it.
Essentially,
It's like
you just burnt through like 50 grand or whatever it was.
Over the years of my apprenticeship, it would be, it would be in the rounds of hundreds of thousands. You know what I mean? It'd be over the 100,000 mark, pretty easy, maybe even 200. Like, because all of it went.
Yeah.
It's just like I remember when I got redundancy from this job, losing it due to my alcoholism, and I got paid out.
Yeah.
And I can't, whatever the payout was, and that should have lasted me a while, and it lasted one bender, the thousands and thousands of dollars. It was from start to finish.
Yeah.
When that bender was done, I was back to $0 in the bank account. But that was normal. It's just like I'd be out on times, and I don't even know how I made it work when I look back on it now, because it doesn't make sense. Is I remember being in Melbourne on one night, and I was to stay away for work, so I had to have petrol in the car. I think I was driving down to Warrnambool. I had to have money for food, and I had to have money for accommodation.
Yeah.
And I drained all of my last money. And I remember saying to the dealer at the time, I said, this is every single dollar that I have. Because I used to be I used to be a dickhead like that and say shit like this just because I was just such an egomaniac. And I said, this is all the money that I have, and now giving this to you is I don't have any money to go work away next week for petrol, for food, or for accommodation. Yeah. And I'd hand him the $500 or the $1,000 or whatever it was. And then it's even going, it's like I can see now if I spend this, but it's I need to get this now.
Yeah.
It's like I need to get on now, I need to drink now, I need to party now. And then whatever I had to do, you know what I mean, if I had to get another loan out or redraw an old loan or borrow money off somebody, and then I always had friends that had money, so I could quickly borrow $500 so I could go live away.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's sad looking at
it's
wasted
I
money.
mean, you're here now, which is the main thing.
It's great, yeah.
So for me, like I've done like benders and stuff like that, just more alcohol, obviously, but it's what I've found for myself is you have a big night out, and then you might have another night out. Maybe it's traveling and stuff like that, where it's more just it's more accessible, and you're free and cheap and whatever else. But the thing that always made me stop was I felt like I was going to die. You know what I'm like? Like just the build up of shit sleep or fucking countless booze over a couple of days. Like that's the thing that always gets me is that how addicts and stuff push through the barrier of like, did you feel physically ill?
It's a very weird world. Is some people, I mean, like say my partner and other people I know, is it's like they stop drinking because they're getting to the point of, I'm feeling a bit out of control. They don't like to feel out of control. And for myself it's like it's like that's the state that I thought that I loved. You know what I mean? It's like on the cusp of like a coma almost, of like not being able to physically function, but I can be out in the world where it's like you should almost not be able to stand. It's like, again, the sickness of I was obsessed and loved that feeling. You know what I mean? Of just being completely, it's like sleep deprived. You've got a whole bunch of chemicals in you. You're just like out of your normal self, and the feelings that you're experiencing and the buzz that you're getting from that stuff is, I loved it. Like I thought that I loved it, you know what I mean? And I was, later on, it took me years to see that it's like what I thought when I was having fun, I wasn't when I look back on it now. I had a lot of great times still, but I view things very differently now. Like even during all that time, is when I look back on it now, even the times when it would seem a bit more innocent, is I've been harming my family for many years. And so it's like I can say I was having fun, but I also know that is the sickness that I brought into my family, which has taken years to heal, which it has, it's like it's quite hard to get across. But we used to have this, like it got so bad in some stages, we named, there was an alter ego that if anybody just went into it, it was called Calvin. And it kicks in after, like, you might spend 3, 4, 5 or 6 days not sleeping if you're on a really bad run, and you'll like, so your eyes will be open, but you'll do something or say something that's just like you've switched into another ego or like an alter, so to speak, and you come back to it. And then you've been in it when people are looking at you and they're like got a real concerning face, and we would say, did Calvin come out? And they go, yeah, Calvin came out. And because you like people who are used to that, you'll be all right. But I've come back from scenarios where people are like, you've really scared that person from what happened, and I don't even know what I said or did. You know what I mean? Or you'll just like spaz out. And I used to, I think there's just a depravity in the darkness of that side that I loved. You know what I mean? It's like getting around Melbourne, and it's like 3 or 4 days deep in a bender, and there's people going to work, and I was just like, I don't know. I was just so sick back then, and just wrapped up in that world. I thought I loved all the elements of it. You know what I mean? It's like the depravity in the darkness and the lack of control. I really thought that I loved it. But
when you're in those, like that time, it sounds like it's pretty deep in it. Do you? I suppose you said you snap out of a bit, but do you justify it to yourself and? Do you go like, oh, I'm in control, it's normal? You know, I know you said you like the uncontrolled part of it, but like mentally when you were coming down and whatnot, were you like, no, I'm good, I could stop next week, or I just enjoy doing it, that's why I keep doing it? Is that part of the addiction where your brain's be like, yeah, you're in control, mate, just keep buying this, keep doing that, don't worry about it, don't think about it? Is that?
I think one of the obsessions is, which is very common to a lot of people that I know, in AA and for myself, is there's a line in our book, in the book Alcoholics Anonymous, that's got the 12-step program in it, is somehow, someday he will beat the game. Okay. So you're trying to get it right. So for me, my recipe was my family didn't know what I was doing, and if I wasn't getting in trouble with the law, so no consequences in my eyes. If I didn't have to make amends or make things right, so I've caused damage out there. Is I wanted to drink and use the way that I wanted to, and so. But I think it's the criminal side. So we say that there's a side that's delusional. It's like you do not know. So say, for example, when it progressed to the point where I was taking ice, meth, is before, like you're in it and it's all moving very quickly. And by the time you stop and look back and go, where the fuck am I? You're like balls deep, way too far in. You're like, wow, I've blown past that mark of, like, I've gone way far past the point of thinking that I can control or stop this. And it's just, we say it's a comic tragedy because we can laugh about it, but it's also tragic, is how delusional the mind can be, thinking like all the ways of trying to stop or control it. So say with me, say one particular drug or the drugs were getting too bad, I better lower that one, but continue on with all the rest. So alcohol, everyone's starting, because alcohol, I was getting into so much trouble later on with my drinking, and even closer people were more happy with me taking drugs than alcohol, because I was just causing less harms. And
so you're just a belligerent drunk?
Well, the thing is, is in one regard there was delusion with how much harm I was causing my family, but to the fact is, I used to say to people when we're on, well, I'm like, because a lot of people, even when you smoke ice, they don't like the word meth, and I'd say, we're smoking meth and it's not good, and they're like, why the fuck would you say that?
Why are you bringing this down?
Oh, why'd you bring this up? And I go, well, and I used to say this a lot when we're getting on. I go, if you can't tell your grandma what you're doing, it's probably not the right thing.
It's true. It's a
a good rule of thumb, isn't it? You know what I mean? It's like it's good for everything. It's like if you can tell your grandma what you're doing, you're probably doing the right thing. And so I wasn't deluded to the fact that smoking ice was a good life choice. Is I didn't care. It's like in the sense, it's like at least my illness said that I didn't care. It's just like I wanted to get a buzz on. It's like I wasn't like thinking that it was a good life choice, and where I was at was, it's like that you'd want that for someone. I wasn't that deluded, but I just didn't want to change. I didn't want to stop. And it was the heavy consequences over time. And the sad thing is, for me, what got me to look at my own drinking to wanting to stop is it's when my internal condition was done. Because I've caused harms in the lives of other people. And if I wasn't anywhere near wanting to stop, the sad thing to say is I didn't have remorse. Like I've done some real shocking things and harmed a lot of people, like done really atrocious things. And if I wasn't on a run of trying to stop drinking, I don't care. I don't care about you. I don't care. It's like, but because I've told my family certain things that weren't the worst thing that I've ever told them, but it crippled me internally when I touched that, and I got honest, and I was just like alone in my room, where I've spent moments weeping on the floor in the dark, because I've come to terms with where I'm at. But you know what happens? 3 days later, I pick up a drink and I forget about all that. And I'm on a run of 3 to 4 months. And everything's fine, because when I'm drinking, nothing is wrong. You cannot tell me anything. I'm fine. I'm flying. even though your mother's just told you that she thinks you're going to die or go to jail for a very long time. You're so selfish and self-centered in your own alcoholism, you don't even realize that your father's stopped talking to you, and your sister's wrote you off as a person, and she hates your guts. Yeah. It's like I can see the truth of that, and then 1 week later when I start drinking, I can forget about that for 4 months.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Criminal.
It's crazy.
The alcoholism is criminal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously ice is the one that you got into once you started drinking.
Yeah, that it was just a progression. Is like people talk about weed being a gateway drug, and it's like 100% that's what it is. It's like I didn't drink and then start taking ketamine. I didn't drink and then start taking juice or smoking ice.
Yeah,
it's like started smoking joints.
Yeah.
Then, when I was smoking joints, I thought bongs were for losers and that you're a drop kick and you're going to go nowhere in life. then I have a bong and I go, well, you just get a better hit, don't you?
Yeah.
Then it's try mushrooms, and then I tried then I was snorting speed, then I tried smoking speed, and then just whatever came across my path is anything that could give me a buzz. I was obsessionally attracted to it. I just chasing hard. Yeah. And then it just came from someone. I can't even fully remember the scenario, but then the first time it's when ice came onto the scene, is it went from smoking speed and you're like, okay, then it starts smoking ice and you're like, well, this is like 5 times as good, so why would I go back to that?
Yeah, okay.
I mean, if you're chasing a buzz and that's what you're looking after, and then it's like, then it was a battle between is what was getting me into more trouble. Was it the booze or was it the ice? And I was trying to get that recipe right. Like I said, instead of going, you need to stop all things completely because it's like you're not going to live a successful life if you can. And we used to talk about it. Or when do you have to stop? Is it 28? Is it 30?
Yeah.
At what point you got to stop being a loose animal and then you can actually get on with life? And I would always try to taper one or the other.
Yeah.
And it's like, but I see the madness of that today. I remember when I was trying to tamper off, thinking that I could stop taking ice, but the amount that I smoked speed went up. And then I was still taking pills and still drinking. And I'm like, this is a good solution.
Okay. So I thought you meant you were going to be like, I did less drugs and drank more, but you just did more drugs of a different description.
Or vice versa. Yeah. Sometimes it's like, all right, let's lower the gear and do more alcohol. Or the alcohol, let's try and drop the alcohol. Then the other stuff would increase so much.
So you're trying to find the loophole that however you could like get to the...
Got to get the recipe right. Because it seemed like a very impossible thought not having any alcohol or substance in my life. Doing life completely sober just seemed like an impossible thought. And that's what I learned later on is about the other side of alcoholism is that there's an underlying unmanageability in life. And as my sponsor said to me, he goes, Gareth, you running your own life led you to the doorstep of Alcoholics Anonymous. And that's not just the fact that you drank and took drugs. It's like your life decisions. It's just like you running the show. The best actions you took was broken relationships, lost jobs, is your internal condition is ruined. You've caused harm to your family, and you're on the doorstep of Alcoholics Anonymous not having an answer, seeking help. He goes, that's from you managing your life. Yeah. And he goes, if you were hiring someone to manage your life, you would have fired them years ago. Because you're a failed life manager. Yeah. And that's the other side of the program, and what I learned in AA is that I didn't just need to put the alcohol and drugs down, is I need to be shown how to live a new way of life. Yeah. I mean, I needed new tools. I needed to go through a profound change in the way in which I think, how I relate to the world, how I see the world, and the principles and virtues that I'm being guided by now. Yeah. Which I mean, I didn't know that that's why I was going to AA, is to live a whole new way of life. I thought once alcohol and drugs are down, I'll be fine. Yeah. But what I learned is in the sober state is I have an underlying unmanageability, which is if that doesn't change, it's probably going to always lead me back to drugs and alcohol. Because as I was saying before with the mental obsession is, if I'm sober, I can't blame ice because there's no ice in me.
Yep,
if I'm sober, I can't blame alcohol, so that can't be the problem. So what's the problem is me. It's not in the bottle, it's not in the pipe. It's like me, inside of me is what the problem is. And in AA we say is the main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind. Yeah. So it's like, if my main problem's in my mind, what needs to change? My thinking. Okay. And that's where the 12-step program comes into it, it's like showing us how to live a new way of life, a recovery and spiritual based way of life that can change the way in which we think. Yeah. And there's a bit, I guess we can get into that a bit later, is that's really important to me today, because there's a saying that I really like is, what happens when you sober up a drunk horse thief? You have a sober horse thief.
Okay.
So what needs to change is that the man needs to change so he's no longer stealing horses.
Yeah, okay.
And that's more important to me today, is it's like the change that I've gone through and the virtues and principles in the life that I want to live is the most important thing. Because even you take out drugs or alcohol, I was still a selfish, self-centered, inconsiderate man who was filled with resentments and filled with fears and judging the world. And it's just like, thought I had bad luck and the world was against me. And so it's like, that's what needs to change, not just the fact of get alcohol and drugs out, because you take that out, I'm still the same dude.
Yeah.
It's like, I need to change.
So that's one of the, we'll get into the AA stuff in it. So, was there a specific moment, and you may have touched on it a little bit, but a specific moment where you're like, I need help? Like, you know, like a defining moment that you can go like, this was the day that I don't know, it was a family, was it something of you did something or you snorted something and you're like, this isn't what I'm supposed to be snorting. Yeah. Like, is there anything that you...
Yeah. So it was, there was just like, there's just a madness that goes on with that life. And it's like, there's certain other bad habits that would just start that I couldn't break.
Yeah.
Like, so drink driving was one of them. I was obsessed with joyriding, drink driving people's cars, and unfortunate to say, stolen cars, and just the thrill of just doing the wrong thing. I was obsessed with that buzz. Like, and this is what I learned as well, is it's like, I was geared up for this stuff way before I picked up my first drink or took a drug.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Is like, I was, anything that gave me an effect or I felt like I was doing the wrong thing, I seemed to be attracted to from a young age. Resistant to parental help, resistant to, you know what I mean, people in school. It's just like, I just wanted to run the show and do life myself from a young age.
The Gaz show.
Yeah. And so the drink driving thing is, I was just like, that was something that once it started, even in the sober state, I was like, I don't want to do this. Like, this is bad. But when, as soon as I was drunk or I got on and I was on drugs, is I just always wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And it was funny when we're younger, but then less and less people want to be involved in that. So it's like, it literally had to be more conniving on ways that I have to do it.
Yeah.
And so the thing with the drinking and younger people is, as people get older and mature, they don't want to hang out with you. So start to lose more friends. And then so I was having to hang out with a younger and younger crowd. And I was that loser who was hanging out with the younger and younger crowd to be more relevant and cool. Yeah. And so I'd always loved driving other people's cars. Yeah. And so we came out. This is just a story about how criminal the mind of the alcoholic is. I was on a run of not drinking, but still taking drugs.
Yep.
And one Thursday night, went down to the Juck pub, drinking with a younger crowd, and got slaughtered, drove their car around 36 hours in the car with them and hanging out and just being crazy. And there was no consequences in my head. So I drank on a Thursday night. I think I must have bailed from work on the Friday, I was regularly missing work. And so in my alcoholic head, it's like, can't see the clear picture, which is you're smashing your life to the pieces, is because I drank that night and there was no consequences that I could see, I'm good to drink again.
Yeah.
The very next Thursday, what I do a repeat, but with people that I've grown up with, that I drank with. And so drinking at the Juck pub, slaughtered, did as I always did, drove there, was going to drive home. Then someone says the wonderful idea, even though I got work on, but I'm unable to think of the consequences for later on, because I want to do what I want to do now. Someone says, let's go to Geelong. It's like, let's get on and go out in Geelong. What a wonderful idea. I'll drive. At this time, even worse, is I didn't have a car, didn't have a license, because it was the second time I lost my license drink driving. And then,
how old were you then?
I was 23 when this happened.
Okay.
And then
so you're going on 8 years from your first drink to the first blackout, as you said.
Yeah. So it was only a short stint, but it's just like it progressed pretty quickly.
Yeah, it sounded like it. Yeah.
And so I could have been, it's like, looking back on it now, it's like I easily could have tried to stop. I didn't want to, but like 18 or 19, I could have come into AA for sure.
Yeah.
Easily. Like I know people I got friends over in the States that came in at 16 and they're like fully burnt out at 16. Actually, one of my other mates. Anyway, I'll get into that later. And so that night is just normal. It's like, I'll drive. And I used to say this stupid thing. Like, I used to just always I used to say this just unbelievably dumb thing. I say, you can't lose something you haven't got. So you don't drive, I'll drive.
Okay, because you didn't have a license.
But it's such dumb logic, because it's like, what happens if someone who doesn't have a license, who lost it for drink driving, gets caught again? Well, you're probably going to go to jail.
Yes.
It's like there's a chance of you going to jail if you do it enough times. And they go, oh, that's pretty sound reasoning, because they might have had a few drinks. And
no, they're not going to get in trouble.
Yeah, exactly. It's like responsibilities of them. I'm doing what I want to do. I want to go joyriding because I love it, or drive around whilst I'm off my head. And so we're driving into Geelong. We get some gear, and then what happens is I do a bit of shit driving, and cops were there, and they saw me.
Yeah.
And I absolutely freaked. I just went. First thing came into my mind is, if you get pulled over and spoken to now with your priors, you're definitely going to jail. And everyone's in the car. They don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
And I turned to everyone. They don't know, and I said, I'm not going to jail. And they're like, what? And I floored it, and then it was bad. I potentially risked every person's life in that car, and I got in a cop chase, and then ran away, and got away. And
as in, like, you physically ran?
Physically ran, like, okay. And it was that was so gnarly, man. Jumped over in this school, and it's like, the idea of, like, if you're running for your life, that's what it felt like. Yeah. And I felt like I had superpowers. Like, I was running so hard and so fast for so long. It felt like I was literally running up to fences. I'd get up onto the top of the fence, and like, it felt like it was in a single motion. I'd jump up onto a roof, running off the roof, jump into a backyard in the dark, can't see anything.
Yeah.
Just like, it was like a movie scene of madness when it's like parkour. I don't know how to do it. And it's like James Bond is chasing that dude in Casino Royale, and they're jumping up stuff, and like, that's what it felt like. And I was running so hard, and I didn't want to look behind me. And then as I was going around one of the corners on the suburb to look behind me, couldn't see a dude there. And I went to lie down in someone's front lawn, and my heart was smashing my chest so hard. I go, wow, this is how I die.
Yeah,
this is the way that I go out. You know what I mean? It's like, what a pitiful existence.
Yeah.
And then it's like, I felt like my heart recovered, and I'm like, what am I going to do? And I was so freaked out about going on main roads, and like, plenty of cops are going to be around now. So I had to like slither my way through the suburbs. I knew the rough direction of Torquay, and I was going to head towards Grovedale to try and get to Torquay. And then took me hours of walking through the suburbs. This is just on a weeknight. I'm supposed to be going to work the next day. And I get to the Grovey pub, and I'm like, this is my last chance. Maybe one of my shit kicker mates is in here on the punt, on the gear.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, one of my mates is in there. And he's on the gear, he's on the pokies. And then it was just a crazy night. We went back to where it was because my wallet my ID fell out, and I didn't want him to have my ID. So we went back, got that. And then I had a really I had lots of rules and systems around my drinking and using. And so, and it's pretty common that people have the same thing too. And one of my rules was never be around my family intoxicated on drugs.
Okay.
That was my rule, because they can't see me, I'm not hurting them, which is such a lie. So I would go missing. I would not see my family for 3, 4, 5, 6, sometimes a week. Yeah. Because I wasn't sober, so I wouldn't go and see them. I'd try not drink at family dues. Yeah. All that stuff. And this was one of the first times being on drugs, being around my father. And I jumped my back fence, did my usual El Sneako into the house. I had a full system of getting into the house and not being heard. Yeah. And then as I stepped into my bedroom, and I'm high as, just had that incident, I heard my father get up, and I'm going to work with my father. Oh. And then it's like, I went to work with my father that day, and I'm like, I was speaking to everybody. I was at work. I was in a position where I was just at work, and I was working by myself. And I'm like, I'm done. I'm going to jail. I'm going to get caught. Yeah. And then I'm speaking to everyone the night before. They're like, what's going on? And I'm just like, I'm done here. And then it's just like the classic signs of the symptoms is, what did I do that night? I tried to get on again when I got home that night. I was like, I don't think I had any money. And I was just like trying to get the dregs of people that I knew to keep, just to have a little bit. And did my usual thing is I was coming up with everybody's alibi. I was like in this mode of, if we go to court, this is what everyone's saying. Yeah. And then did an interview with the cops, denied it all, because you literally don't have to say a single word when you're in a police station. Okay. And so you can just say, good news if you get arrested, Tait.
Yeah. That's my clientele.
Yeah.
That's my listeners. Like, it's the most valuable thing I learned.
And so, but then what was going to happen is the owner of the car was going to get charges against her name. And I went, and I was brought up with enough good morals to know that's piss poor. Yeah. And so I went, cool. So fessed up to it. And then the moment this was the moment. You know, I mean, kind of a long story to get to what you're talking about, but what was that moment where it hit? And I had two, because I had one before AA and I had one in AA. And this moment was when I was getting legal advice, and there was no ifs or buts, very direct, almost like we can't help you, was you're going to go to jail.
Jeez.
We can, and it's
You're
just
23.
like 23 years old. And I was never like, even though I went to court lots of times, I still wasn't from that world. You know what I mean? There's people that are just like, dad's a crim. They literally almost don't know that it's immoral to act in a certain way. Stealing is a right. You know what I mean? It's like, there's people that come from a real rough world from that. You know what I mean? I didn't come from a broken home. You know what I mean? Even though my dad was quite loose when he was younger, he pulled it together for the family and became a good man, a good family man. And so even though I've been to court plenty of times and drank, drove, and had I had some pretty serious crimes, I still didn't feel like I was from that world. You know what I mean? Towards the end of it, I was brushing shoulders with people in that world, and it's like, I was scared. I was like, no way, I don't want to be around these people.
Yeah.
I mean, more heavy hitters than I were. The way I described it is, in that moment, I felt like the lights had turned off. I was a little boy in the dark again, and it's like I was hopeless. It's like, I'm done. I don't have any answers anymore. As you can tell, I can talk very quickly, and I can be a quick thinker, coming up with a new plan. I can get this, I can put that fire out. I'll get this done, make it good with that person so I can keep doing what I was doing. There was no more scheming. There was no more plans.
Yeah.
I was done. I didn't have an answer anymore. And I had a friend 6 months before, he had a drug psychosis, and he got honest with his family about everything.
Yeah.
And I went to him and said, man, I'm thinking about doing the same thing. He goes, do it. It'll be the hardest thing you've ever done, but it'll be the best thing you've ever done. And I sat mum and dad down, and they didn't know about the substances so much. I made everything look like alcohol, and I sat them down and got honest. And I laughed with it in my mates in AAs. I almost threw up. It's like I hadn't been honest with my family for so many years.
Yeah.
I was almost allergic to being honest. Like, my head was I was completely sober. My head was spinning, and I felt like I was going to throw up. And I had to come and tell my families that they thought I wasn't drinking. It's like, I'm not drinking anymore. I'm addicted to ice, and it's very likely I'm going to go to jail. And I just dropped that on them, bang.
Yeah.
And at the time, this is the madness of alcoholism, is at the time I was seeing a drug and alcohol counsellor. I was seeing an AOD worker lying to her, which is very, very common for alcoholics. Will seek help but still lie. And I was going to her for the alcohol, and because in my head I'm like, if I'm not getting into trouble with alcohol, and I can keep smoking ice, and I'll just stop smoking ice when it's like you get to the age where you need to be an adult, and I'll do that. Got honest with her, and from Barwon Youth, Claire, love her. She somehow listens to this. What a legend.
Yeah.
And she goes, yeah, you need to get some extra help, and then that's where she guided me towards AA.
Yeah. We'll get into AA very shortly.
Yeah, it's cool.
But just to a bit of a recap, I suppose, and I asked a couple of people before having you on, just like, what questions would you ask? One of the questions that came up multiple times was, what's the average day? An average day for, like, I know everyone's going to be different, but what was your average day? I know, like, let's just go from Monday to Sunday type thing. So you were still working?
Yeah,
so
still sort of work. Yeah, no, like that. So yeah, unfortunately, it's like, for myself, it's like being an alcoholic, I can be fairly conniving to set up life the way that I want it to be, so I can do what I want to do, which is drink and take drugs. Yeah. So having a government job, as I knew that is legally, even if everyone knows you're bullshitting and lying, when you're in a big corporate company, no one can ask you why you're sick.
So you just got to say the right words.
You got to know how to do it. And then it's like, and so is the normal day might be, that's the thing, is I might not, say I start drinking on it progressed. So say my normal week would be is every single weekend I'm getting on and getting as loose as I possibly can, but it might be within the parameters of Friday night to Sunday night.
Yep.
Aiming to go to work Monday.
Yep.
But then as I progress, so that's like the whole setup. And sometimes I couldn't go a whole week. I'd start obsessing about a drink. So there might be midweek sessions at Juck Pub. Mm-hmm. But I'd present it as I was always good at organising heaps of people. Let's go to the Juck Pub. We'll get palmies, pots, and play pool, and I'd just make it into a big thing. What did I want to do? I wanted to drink. Yeah, that's what I want to do. Yeah. I still love my friends and like the camaraderie of friends, but it's like that. Sometimes I'd go there. I don't know if people would notice. Is I wouldn't even eat.
Yeah.
I just drink jugs.
Yeah.
It's like, and then it's like, some people are having 3 or 4 pots, maybe getting a little bit more tipsy than you should on a weeknight. But it's like I was going home sloshed, driving home sloshed.
Yeah.
It's like that was normal. That was completely normal, doing that regularly. And sometimes we'd be the last people to leave, putting on the jukebox, quickly ordering the last jug. People from down the surf coast will remember this. And then what's his name? Not Bully. I've forgotten his name. He'd say, "How are you boys getting home?" And we'd say, and he would know we're driving. We'd kind of just get brushed off, but it was completely normal.
Yeah.
Midweek, drink, driving, going home sloshed. That was just a Wednesday. I think Wednesday nights used to be palmy night.
Yeah.
And so, but it's like, so still working, still going to work. The majority of the week, as I started to get past 18 and 19, is I was just looking to set up the next time that the bender would start.
Yeah.
I'd think about that a lot. Not all throughout the day, because I was still able to do my schooling, pass my assessments and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But it progressed. It became more and more domination of my thoughts of when am I drinking, how am I going to drink, how am I setting all this stuff up. And so it progressed from Friday night, Saturday nights, and I wouldn't always do Sunday sessions. Then it progressed into every Friday night, every Saturday, every Sunday. Then into Sundays as well. And then I started missing work on Mondays.
Yeah.
Then I started have to miss work midweek because I'd start, especially when the drugs came around, or if people are on uni break, start drinking, they're staying up all night.
Yeah.
I can't go to work if I'm literally like 0.2.
Yeah.
It's like can't go to work. And so the intensity of all of it just progressively was getting worse and worse and worse.
Yep.
But in your head, you're just like, oh, this is my normal life.
Yep.
So in the end, when I look back and say that now, it even shocks me now. Where it's like, yeah, sometimes I'm supposed to be on a working week. I'm supposed to be working both weeks. But my family doesn't see me for 6 days.
Yeah.
I still might be going to work, sort of hungover in states that I shouldn't be going to work.
Did you ever get pulled up at work? Did they ever say like, "Hey man, you"?
I don't know how I did it, but I did really well in making everything look like alcohol, and alcohol is a lot more acceptable.
Yeah.
When you're a loose student, especially too, is because I was likable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like I'm a friendly guy. I'm a likable dude. People love hearing about the crazy escapades, which I had a whole alter ego about being the Gaz man and all my crazy stories.
Yeah.
Is people at work. I actually, when I went back and made amends in the program, which we can go back to, and talking to other dudes at work.
Yeah.
And I've spoken to men that I used to work with. They said we probably were at fault that we were laughing at all of it. We probably should have addressed it together.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because it's like, he's this crazy guy who's got all the stories and all the apprentices, but I still show up every now and again. I'm a bit sketchy. My tardiness is very high. Inconsistency in showing up, but somehow it worked. Like I could continue on with that, with it all being okay for years, which is not good. You know what I mean? When it's like you can act in a certain way. And that was actually a very detrimental thing with my personal relationships, is acting in a deplorable manner because I'm a likable guy and I can laugh it off. Or, that's just what Gaz does.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just like groping a friend's girlfriend is disgusting. It's terrible behavior. It's so bad.
Yeah.
But it's like, I did that, and the repercussions in my eyes wasn't that bad. We could laugh it off. Or, I'm sorry, mate. You know what I mean? And then it was all good. But it's just like,
Gaz,
if you were to watch that in public and you watched another friend grope your friend's missus, you'd be like, mate, you might even knock him out. You're like, what are you doing, man?
Yeah.
Whereas it's just like, I always seem to be able to do things like that and get away from it because that's the Gaz man, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I also fed off that. I loved that I could get away with things that you shouldn't. But it was to be my demise.
Yeah.
Was not a good thing. I look back on it now and go, look how amoral your life was, how bad your behavior was. But that was the life that I was living. It's just like, there's always some big drama going on. I was always looking at maximizing the spree and the benders that I was trying to go on.
Yeah.
And fit that in and still live a normal life. That's what I was trying to get right, is I want to wipe myself out as regularly as I possibly can and live a good life.
Yeah.
But you got to pick one or the other, brother.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not going to work. It's like you have one choice. You can go down that path, cool.
Yeah.
We know what that looks like. And whereas if you want to live a good, wholesome life as well and progress forward in areas, is you've got two competing modes of life that you're battling with.
And you can't have both, as you said.
No.
What we're going to do here is we're going to break up these episodes and we're going to have a part 2 for next week. So stick around. Next week will be part 2 of this episode, to be honest, and we're going to speak more about AA. I'll go pretty deep into that, I believe. So thanks for listening to this episode. The Tait and Cody's Guide to Life new podcast is also out. That's every Thursday, so please check that one out. Next week it's the Gaz back again. Thanks guys for tuning in. Thank you.